Hey, my name is Scott Payne, and that is Lee Lambert. He's one of the founders of the PMP exam. Every single week, I interview Lee, and I have him explain the most complicated PMP topics and to give you practical advice that can build your project management career. So let's get into this. All right, Lee, today we've got a really great topic, how to create and lead high-performing teams. So take it away. How do we jump into this? What do we do first?
Well, let me tell you this. I've been excited about this. I was sorry I missed last week, and so my claim to fame now, as if I had one, is developing high performance teams. I've practiced this concept in volunteer organizations, in youth sports, and then later on, I figured I'd make more money if I did it in business, so I did it for a few businesses I was working in. It just isn't that tough. I think that the problem we face is more likely the inadequate support we get from management to allow time to develop high performance. I mean, you don't just say you're a high performance team and it happens. Mm-hmm. And so, but the impatience that management has, they don't want to let it develop. They don't want to let it evolve into time. Mm. So what I learned was pretty simplistic. The biggest success I ever had was this project over in Indianapolis where we got 3 years worth of work done in 18 months, 205 people working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for 18 months, and never bitching about it, never complaining, never wanting to get off earlier. I mean, I had to send people home.
Yeah.
I used to go in and say, it's time to go home. Your wife called and said, "What? Is he ever coming home?" And I said, "I know why you're not going home, but the fact of the matter is you need to go home." Mm-hmm. And so people were that dedicated. That's the key to high performance team. You've got to overcome the resistance to achieving the contributions you're capable of achieving. I think we sell people short. Mm-hmm. So when I took over that team, and one reason I got the job was because the guy that preceded me sucked. To be honest with you, they were never gonna get it done.
Yeah.
And so I stepped in and said, I think I can do this. And so we took it on. And the thing that I had to do first was to make sure that everybody on the team understood with some clarity where they fit, what the role that they would play on the team, so that they understood. If they look at the team plan, first thing we did is, of course, create a project plan. And then what I did was I took time to show each and every person where they fit in that plan and the consequences of them not being able to conduct the work that we've asked them to do. And so once they started to understand, hey, no matter how big or small my piece of the pie is, if I don't get it done, the project doesn't get done. And once they start to catch on to that, they become enthusiastic about it. And that's why you get 14 hours a day without complaint. It's not because of me, it's because we set up the environment where people actually wanted to contribute. And so once you have that, then you have to start to look at skill set differentials. You have to look at communication techniques because everybody communicates a little bit different style. And so it took us, I would say, 3 months. I think we invested 3 months of less than productive work to formulate the high performance team. I mean, everybody's familiar with the Tuckman model, the forming, storming norms, that whole thing. Been around a long time. It's still good. It's good as gold. And it shows out there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on when you create a high performance team, because there's that early jockeying for position and, where do I fit in the power structure? And then you realize, hey, does it really matter? And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, listen, it's all about performance, not about who's in charge. And once you break that down, by the time you finally get to performing in the Tuckman model, I mean, it's smooth sailing after that. And so we were able to pull that off in record time. It's been written up. PMI wrote it up in a magazine as a miracle project. So, I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke. I can quote them the month. And so, it happened. And it happened because we made it happen, not because it was an accident. And it wasn't any coercion There was
Mhm.
no real pressure put on for people to perform. They just realized, hey, this is in the best interest of the organization. It'll pay dividends for me personally,
Mhm.
and the rest is history. Just a crazy deal. So that's one thing. I think the clarity of what's my role play,
Mhm.
understanding that, understanding that no matter how large or small, you're important, and everybody's got to pull together. The other thing that we did is we made sure that we instilled in people, just if you get your little piece of the pie done, that doesn't mean you just sit around and wait for the next piece. You
Mm.
find somebody else, say, what can I do to help? And
Mm.
so all of a sudden you're seeing yourself not just contributing in your specific area, but now you're contributing across the board for
Yeah.
that particular activity. So it was I have videotapes of progress reports. It's all on. I mean, this is captured for eternity. And people say, well, is it repeatable? Could
Mm.
you do that again? The answer to that question is yes, I could. Now I might not be able to do it with the same. You got to understand this. This is
Mm.
another dangerous high performance team. Once high performance teams create the miracle, it becomes the expectation. And so
Mm.
now the next project comes, and now you're going to expect them to work 14 hours on this one too. No, you can't repeat that.
Mm.
That's not going to be repeatable because people rise to the occasion. But once you're there, you can't take it to the next level. That'd be 18 hours a day. And so what I tell people is, and I think I could do this anywhere.
Yeah.
If you want a high performance team, I'll create it for you, but I won't be able to create it again with the same group of people. But
Mm.
if you give me a different group of people, I can repeat that. And I've done it in volunteer organizations. I was JC Chapter of the Year in California. A lot of competition for teams of project developers. I mean, it's not brain surgery. You're
Mhm.
never going to get paid what you're worth. Don't count your breath on that. But the fact of the matter is, you get some satisfaction knowing that you pulled something off that nobody thought was possible.
That's awesome. I love the steps. So just as we go through there, understanding where they fit and the consequences of them not doing their job in a positive way to say like, hey, everybody's in there. I love that. Skill set differential and making sure that everything's aligned to like fits them. And then you're pushing the conversations down to the lowest possible level to say, do your job, execute at the lowest possible level, and then don't just sit on your hands. Get in there, mix it up with the other
Sure,
people. So
sure.
when you got in there initially and you said, hey, this is where you fit. How did that go? Was it just a lot of individual meetings or a big kind of meeting up front? Like, how did you kick that off? Because this is a different way, I'm sure, than the previous guy.
Yeah, that's a real good question. I have to face that question all the time
Yeah.
because I'm not a big group communicator guy
Mm-hmm.
because I think if you want to just disseminate information, that's fine. But if you've got a challenge or a problem or anything, groups aren't the way to deal with it. So once I got in there and they said who I was and all that, I started a series of individual meetings.
Mm.
And I literally met with all 205 people over that period of 3 months, that evolutionary period. And we spent time talking about, what do you want to get out of this? What can I do to support your efforts? I wanted them to know I was there for them. I wasn't there for me I was there for them. And those sessions took an hour to some took 2 hours at a
Mm.
time. And so until I did all that, I couldn't get the confidence of the people. I was another guy coming in to shake things up, make
Yep.
a quick buck, and get the heck out. So I had to spend a lot of time convincing them that's not why I'm here. I mean, I'm driving from Columbus, Ohio to Indianapolis every day. I commuted every day.
Mm.
So I'm running 18-hour days myself. And I didn't do that for the fun of it. I did it to show that we could do it. And
Mm.
I never spoke in I terms. I
Yes.
always spoke in we terms. So they understood, hey, we do, we're all in it. We're all
Mm-hmm.
in it together. And once that you could feel it, you could start to feel it happen. And then I created the environment where they knew I recognized it. So every
Mm.
month we would have some kind of a special treat. I mean, we were in competition with Johnson and Johnson, and so we would have little trinkets. I call it my trinkets and trash beads and wampum program. So
Yeah.
that every month I set aside a budget of $150,000. One of the things most people won't get, and I'm sorry to say, is
Yeah.
I negotiated unlimited budget.
Yeah.
So the CEO said, "What's it going to take?" And I said, "It's going to take unlimited budget." And he said, "What do you mean by that?" And I said, "I want all the money." And so I set aside $150,000 in beads and wampum, and every month we give something to everybody on the team, not just isolated people. So like in the spring when it was raining, we'd give an umbrella with our logo. We had a secret logo because this was a high pressure job that nobody was supposed to know about. And so we'd have that. We'd send those things out, and the third month I think we had mugs, real nice little mugs. Our code name was Horizon. Now it's called AccuCheck. It's the world's biggest market for blood glucose monitoring. And so we had these mugs out. Well, the third month of handing things out, two of the old guys, senior guys, and the old guys are the worst because we're not doing that. We never done that before. And so we're handing these things out, and everybody's kind of and I usually had them mailed to the house. As you see, one of the benefits of mailing the house is the wife or the husband is going like, "Hey, what's this? What's this all?" So now we're getting buy-in from the family, man. I'm sucking them from every angle, and so they're coming in. And so at about the third month, these two old guys who I knew were trouble came walking into my office, and I could tell they were upset. I said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Listen, I don't know what this trinkets or trash thing is, but it's a waste of time." He said, it's immature, it's childish. We don't need that to get our job done. I said, "That's fine. If you don't want to, I'll take you off the list. I mean, I don't want to cause any problem if you don't want." You see, "Yeah, get us off the list. And if you don't stop it, we're going to talk to the CEO." Well, they didn't know I had the CEO in my back pocket. So I said, "We're going to talk to the CEO." And I said, "Oh, well, listen, we'll take you off the list." So the next month, I look, here the two damn guys come again. And I said, he said, I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "I'll tell you the problem, Lee. We didn't get our mug."
Yeah.
Said, wait a minute. What do you mean you didn't get our mug? I said, "Well, everybody's walking around here with a mug. We're the only two guys with no mug. We look like idiots." And so next thing you know, they're getting their mug. So you create, it's an environment, man. It's an environment where everybody's having a good time and they don't even know how hard they're working.
And then you mentioned, okay, I can get it going for one team. Now, imagine if you were there long term, like that was your team forever.
Yeah.
Could you have sustained it for maybe not the 18 hours a day, 7 days a week? You had a job, you had to get it done. But like if you were going in and saying, "I'm going to run this team for, till they promote you to somewhere else," but could you have kept it going for 2, 3, 4 years, not 18, but like over time?
I think that people who know how to develop high performance teams can live on their reputation. I think once the word is out, because what it means by being able to create high performance teams, it means you're creating an environment where people want to be there. And so when you get the reputation and you create environments where people want to be there, they'll just continue to perform, and you'll end up with all the good people, which translate to more easily developed high performance teams. So yeah, I don't know that there'd be a limit, to tell you the truth, unless you did some things that weren't consistent with the kind of environment you wanted to create. I think I could do it. I used to say this, and nobody ever called me out after the Behringer example because it was so obviously true. But I used to say, "You give me a team of people, and I'll create a high performance team."
Yeah. It's just, it seems simple, and you're keeping it very, very clear in the fundamentals. Like they understand where they are. They know they have your support. They know they can come to you at any time. You're holding them accountable. You're giving them the opportunity to be successful, and then you're rewarding them in a good way, like over time. And
and I think it's important for them to understand, they're not going to always be enjoying what they're doing. They're going to be doing some dog work, same as everybody else.
Yeah.
But they just need to remember they got to pull together with this. Well, when I start forming the team and ask for the budget and all that, the CEO, he said, "Well, listen, here's what I want to do. This is what the CEO wanted to do." He said, "I want to establish a performance pool that if they perform, I've set aside $2 million. I want to set aside $2 million. And if they pull this off, and this was save the company project.
Yeah.
If they pull this off, I'll distribute that money among the team." And he said, "What do you think about that?" And I
Hmm.
said, "I think that's the dumbest idea I ever heard." And he didn't like that because he was all about money. He
Yeah.
said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, listen, it's a stupid idea. I don't support it, but it's not my job to act for the people. Let me take it to my team.
Mhm.
Let me see what they say. They want a performance pool. We'll have it." And he said, "Yeah, do that." 'Cause he said, "I think I know the answer." So I took it and got everybody together, and I told him what Jack wanted to do. I said he wants to set aside 2 million, and if we get it done, we're going to divvy that up among the team. I said, what do you think about that?" And we talked for almost 2 hours about that. And finally, I said, "We got to take a vote. I got to get back to Jack, let him know what he wants to
Mhm.
do." So we took a vote, and all but 7 people turned down the performance pool.
Why'd they
And
do it?
and
Why?
yeah, until this very day, when I tell this story in national meetings, they go, "That's nobody did that." And I said, "No, they did. They
Yeah.
turned it down." And I said, "Why? Why did they turn it down?" Now here's why.
Mm.
They felt like it was a form of prostitution. They said,
Okay.
"Look,
Jesus. Yeah.
if you gotta pay me money to
To
reach
do
the
my
level
job.
of performance that's necessary for this company to be successful, that's like hanging that carrot out in front." I learned this at GE. They hang that carrot out in front of you. If you get it, you get it right, and you just never could quite reach the damn carrot. And
Mm.
that's the way they were interpreting. Look, what it was a slap in the face because I
Mm.
had just asked them and told them what they were going to have to do, and now they're saying, "Oh, and if you do it, we'll give you a lot of money." And
Mm.
so they were really offended by it. And then he said, but Lee, here's what we want you to tell Jack. If he wants to recognize us spontaneously when the project's over and we've been successful, if he wants to do something then, we're fine with that. But
Yeah.
don't wave that money out in front of us as an incentive to do that. And so when we completed the project,
Hmm.
he, he the entire team and their significant other spent 2 weeks in Hawaii on Jack.
Jeez.
And not a single person turned that down.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a single one turned that down. I was so excited about it. I went back and told Jack, I said, "This is going to be fun. I can't wait." And he said, "You're not going." I said, "What do you mean I'm not going?" He said, "You're a contractor." He said, You aren't in on the deal. In fact, you didn't even like the deal." And so I didn't go. Well, I did go. I paid my own way and went
Yeah.
there. I was right side by side with my team. He was so angry. I've never seen a guy so mad. He just didn't get it. He just thought money. He thought it was all
Yeah.
about money. I don't think it's anything about money. I think it's about morale and attitude and enthusiasm.
Mm, I like that a lot. And they got it at the end. Great for them. And how much better it was instead of having that like, oh, we got to hit this metric. We got to burn down at this rate. We got to do whatever it is where they're like, everybody's stressed about that. You just had them rolling on like, let's get better. Let's do the job. Like, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned
There was no
early on,
stopping.
I love it. Sorry, you mentioned early on that a lot of times something that stands in the way of the high performance team while you're setting this process up is the executive. So how
Sure.
does the executive not giving the patience, not having the thing, maybe putting their nose in a different way? Like how can the executive screw it up?
Yeah, the problem with the executive is first of all, they don't understand what it takes to get some of these things done.
Yeah.
But second of all theythey got a date that they're supposed to be done. And they
Yes.
want to get started right away because they know it's going to be a big challenge. Okay. I ran into this at GE. We got a $25 million contract in back in 77. That's quite a bit of money.
Mhm.
And so I was assigned as project manager. And so I gathered my 25 key guys together to begin the planning process. Well, unfortunately, our meeting room was at the top level executive floor. It was one of those fish tank kind of things where there was glass in the hall and
Mhm.
then a big room and then glass to the outside.
Mhm.
And so that was the only place available. So we met in there, 25 of us, key people in the organization. And every day, the president of the division would walk by. And as he walked by, you could see the first day he just kind of meandered by, and you looked in, you could see he was kind of seeing who was in there, and just walked on. Second day, he gets to the middle room, stops, and now does a little check on who all's in the room,
Mhm.
and goes ahead to say. Third day, he just goes to the door that goes in the room. And he says, "Lee, you got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah, well, of course. I mean, you're the president of it. Of course, I got a minute. So what do you need?" He said, "Listen, Lee," he said, "I've been walking by this room now for 3 days." I said, "Yeah, we noticed." And he said, "I've been walking by and I've noted that you have 25 of some of my highest paid executives participating in this activity." He
Mhm.
said, "Let me ask you this. What the hell are you doing in there?" 25 of my key people the third day, and I don't know how long it's going to go on. What are you doing in there? And I said, well, it reminded me of that $25 million project. He said, yeah, I know. He said, well, we're planning it. We're figuring out how it is we're going to actually deliver that project. We're planning. I said, Lee, we don't have time for that. We got work to do.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that was the strongest lesson I ever got on an executive's lack of understanding of what it takes to deliver projects. They don't get it. I mean, Kersner's written some books, Project Management for Executives. You know, they're great from a theoretical standpoint, but once you get out in the battlefield, they don't read Kersner's books. They just do whatever they think's the right thing to do.
Right.
So it's a big problem.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. So I love the fact. So if somebody's in that situation, how do they make the case to the big person to say, you gotta give me some time. You gotta let me work. Like, how would you make the case if you weren't able to turn them like initially? Like,
well, at this point in my career, I have a lot of leverage from experience, but in the beginning for younger people who are just kind of trying to get into this high performance team thing, you've got to show a cause and effect relationship. Okay. You've got to show what'll happen if we reach high performance status, and then what does it take to reach it, so that they can understand if they don't give you the time to nurture the high performance capabilities, they're going to miss their deliverable. And that impacts their bottom line. That impacts their bonus package. And that's all they really care about anyway. And so you got to show them a cause and effect relationship, and then implore upon them, you got to give me time to do this. If you don't, I mean, it's just like sports teams. If they don't give the manager time, they hire them for the first year. The first year they don't win everything, oh, they fire them. That happens all the time. Well, you look at managers who they stick with for 2, 3, 4 years. By the third and fourth year, they turn those teams around. They're winning things because they've had time to develop high performance teams. Sports a classic example. The only problem with sports, there's too much money involved in it, and you don't get paid extra for high performance until the next year or the next year after that. So there's some problems with professional sports. Amateur sports, I can do it every time. Did it with little league kids, did it with pony league 13, 14-year-old kids. And once you get those kids turned on, oh hell, there's no turning them off.
That's good. I mean, I know you're an Ohio guy. I don't know if like you're against the Steelers or whatever, like being like, but they've only had like 3 or 4 coaches their entire existence. And it seems like they follow your model of saying like, hey, we're going to let the coach set the example and push it through. Like,
absolutely. I mean, look at their defensive coaches are older than God. I mean, they've been there forever. They've had time to develop, and everybody knows going in what the expectation is. And so they don't have to build that from the bottom up. They're already at the middle when they start with some of these guys. And so, and that's a problem you have with these young guys coming up. These Heisman Trophy winners, they don't get it. It's not about being the superstar. It's about fitting in a team setting. That's why Brady's so successful. He knows how to work as a team.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so if we go to the Brady's, you know, he's the most successful quarterback of all time. He's not probably the most talented quarterback. I mean, he's good at what he does. But like, how does to take it back from the sports to the regular team? If we have high performers like who have been stars, how do we get them to play into the, hey, I'm bringing everybody along? Is there ever a risk that these like, these divas or whatever on our teams could derail the high performance side of it, or what?
Yeah, it's extremely risky, and it can. I've seen teams actually go down as a result of that. This is where the project manager's role becomes very important. You've got to set the expectation in terms of team participation. You look at sports teams that have 1 or 2 superstars generally don't win. They do okay, but they don't win. It's you can look at some of the baseball tends to be more obvious. You can look at some of these baseball teams and you look down their lineup and you don't see a single superstar, but yet they won the title. What the hell? How's that happen? That's because they became high performance teams. As soon as you inject a superstar into the mix, it starts to have an impact. And some of the big names in sports have ruined more teams than they've won. And so, I think it's an important issue. I used to spend a lot of time with the superstars making sure I don't want to degrade their capability and their contribution, but they have to understand that if they overdo it, they're going to have a negative impact on other players.
That's giant. I mean, that is giant, and it's a growth opportunity for them if they realize it or not. Like if they can control themselves, because like in a past interview, you talked about how there are no, like, you and I both, like in our past, like, oh, we weren't ready yet or you said I wasn't ready yet. Like I let my ego and other things overcome
Sure.
you. Yeah, it's the same
Sure.
thing with these people. How
Well,
do you
let me
deal
give
with
you a
like?
quick example.
Yeah.
When I got out of high school, I went to play American Legion baseball in Utah. It was a big deal.
Nice.
And I was a stud. I was a catcher in high school. I was darn good. And so I got on this American Legion team, and they already had a catcher. But well, hell, I'm the star catcher. What do you mean they got a catcher?
Yeah.
So I went in there and started playing. And the first game I wasn't starting. What the hell's going on here? I'm not starting. And it turned out the kid was better than I was. That's why I wasn't starting. But I still had the all-star mentality.
Yes.
And that's one of the problems we have is the all-star mentality. You got to understand. So by the fourth game of the season, I began to realize, I can't quit acting. I got to quit acting like a baby and figure out how can I contribute, because it turned out my hitting was pretty. So I switched to an outfield position, played every game, did a really astounding job. But I was smart enough to understand I could either stay an all-star and not play, or I could stay a team player and enjoy what I was doing. Those analogies are applicable everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. All right. This is great. A lot of this, I mean, all of this is applicable. Like people can come. I mean, I got a team. I got to get more high performing. I got ideas I wrote down. I got stuff to do right today. So like, I mean, like we got to get them shirts out that I was going to send. Like I got to,
there you go.
Yeah. I got to do some stuff. Everybody's got weaknesses. So for the people that are out there that say, hey, I'm on board, I can do this. Like, let's go through the steps. What do you think that they need to do right now? Like, first of all, like, is it possible, before we get into the steps, I just had an idea. Is it possible if you've been leading a project for like 6 months, a year, whatever, to turn them into a high performance team? Like, do you need to come in like cold, or is it possible to change it and rev them up?
No, I think, in fact, I feel that a mid-course correction or a save the project activity actually creates a better atmosphere to do that, because it becomes urgent. I mean, it's obvious now that you got to do something, and something big. So it gives you that chance to say, hey, oh, look, I see what's happened in the past, but look, here's what we can do in the future if we focus on it, pay attention to what we want to do. And all of a sudden it changes the attitude. Yeah. I mean, by the time you get in a project that's in trouble, attitudes stink by now. People are fed up with things. People are unhappy with the way things are going. So now you get to come in and be the hero. What the hell? Well, how can you get any better than that? So no, I don't think I need to start new.
You don't need to start new. Yeah. Okay. So and there's plenty of movies out there where you see like terrible teams, and then there's some event, and then, okay, we got the right leadership. We build it up from there. And they see the errors in their game, and they start going up. So for those people out there that are saying, okay, I want to do this, I'm going to look at myself, see how I'm failing them, and really change the game and build them up to what you're talking about, Lee. Let's go over, what do you think the steps are? What should they be doing next week and the following weeks? How can they get this thing going?
The first thing they've got to do is make sure they understand what the objective of the project is. What's the big picture? What is it this project is hoping to accomplish? Okay. Second step is, where does my role fit in the ability to accomplish that? And then third, for them, they need to understand what other parts of the organization, the team, do I have to interact with on a regular basis to assure that not only can I be successful, but will the team achieve the objectives we've been charged with? And those are the keys. And then, of course, all the fine points of communication and effectiveness and motivation and all that. I mean, things that you do normally anyway have to be done in sort of an emphasized way on a high performance team.
I love it. I got stuff to do. I took notes. I hope everybody else did too. So this is good. All right, Lee, this is a really, really good one. You got me going, and I know a lot of people out there. So I'm going to go shoot some emails, go talk to some people, clarify everything, but really, really appreciate it. And I'm excited for next week, and we'll just keep going. So thank you, sir.
Good. Take care. See you, Scott.